Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona and away. Joe for the first time. Nicholas Borcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa, Frank and Sean. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson, 6/10 lead at the moment.
They're dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, just insane.
They are ready to go. The lights are out, and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the Just Two Idiots Cup Series here for season number 6, race number 2 here at Virginia International Raceway. My name is Mason Heimball with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight, 1080p, 60 frames a second, as we gear up for yet another exciting sprint race here tonight. Drivers currently underway with qualifying, getting those times in, seeing where they are going to put themselves here on the starting grid and see how they are going to fare after they saw a fairly challenging race last week at the Red Bull Ring. This week, hopefully, might see some drivers maybe remedy that a little bit here, if I can get my words out properly, or we could see some drivers not quite have as great of a time here. Virginia, definitely a track that requires a lot of, well, great execution and a lot of confidence, I think is a big key factor in being successful in a track like this. Luckily for these drivers, however, they don't have to go through the whole infield shenanigans that exist here at VIR. It adds a whole, it really just changes the entire feel of the track as a driver, and it makes it even more complicated. But these drivers will have that long straightaway that you see on the bottom right hand side of your screen. You can see that long straight down the back that will make things a little bit less challenging for drivers here today. But as we see drivers making their way around the track here, getting those tires up to temperature, we also see the first official laps being put in on the timing tower, the first of which being put by Squilliam, or actually I should say Black Bob, the 666 machine, with a 147.317 as his best time here, the first driver to come across the checkered line. But it is Squilliam, the 146.821, that is going to be the time to beat here at the moment. And speaking of things to beat here tonight, things are looking quite close already here in the points championship, with Nick Beaver leading that championship with 304 points. Squilliam in that second place spot with 297 points. And because some of these names are not in the username kind of fashion that we have here in these races, I'm going to be saying their full names and hope that you know who I'm talking about. In third place, Marcelo Olindo with 245 points. And just behind him, Lucas Wallace in 4th place, just 6 points behind the 3rd place driver, Lucas Wallace, doing a phenomenal job keeping himself in the top 5. Alex Jensen in that 5th place spot with 232 points, rounding out the top 5. The top 5 all within, well, Alex Jensen has only 72 points to Beaver at this moment, so we're going to be looking to see how some of these drivers are going to really tackle these next few races and see how they can come away with some either podiums, top 5s, top 10s. You don't necessarily have to come away with wins. You mostly want to come away with consistency. You can see Squilliam getting a little bit off track there for a moment. And folks, I got to tell you, that is not going to be the first time that we are going to see that happen here, and especially not for drivers like Squilliam. I mean, it's going to be everyone getting their fair share of seeing a little bit of the dirt here at Virginia. Prince Adam, right as we tune to the 777 machine. Oh, boy. Like I said, folks, it is going to be a long day here at Virginia for some of these drivers, and I'm sure a lot of them are already kind of dreading this race. I know I would be if I was a driver in this series. I would be getting behind the wheel and just thinking to myself, what did I sign myself up for? Virginia is just one of those tracks that really, for me at least, as a driver, you really got to put the practice in. You really got to put that practice in and get comfortable and be consistent on a track like this. It can eat you up and spit you right back out if you're not careful, if you're not comfortable in this track. And especially with how, I want to say, how intricate some of the lines can be here in staying fast on this track. I mean, we're talking mere tenths of a second that you're taking off here by taking just a slightly different line. It's definitely a very tough track to learn for beginners coming into the racing scene, especially into the virtual racing scene, that is. But like I said, it is one of those tracks that if you're like me and if you're someone who doesn't race a lot, you're going to want to come here a couple different times before race day and get in at least a 10, 15, 20, 30 laps per practice session at the very minimum, just to get comfortable, get a feel for things, and be able to feel confident coming in to tackle a race like this. And you'll have to excuse me if I do sound a little sniffly. It is getting that time of season here in the Midwest, so unfortunately that's going to be something that we're going to have to tackle here on the broadcast, but we will be just fine as we get into today's action. And 7 minutes into qualifying, Squilliam still remains your pole sitter with a 142.774. Bozak, the 906 machine, with a 142.854. Only a tenth of a second difference, almost 2/10 difference here between these two drivers. But Black Bob Wallace in that 3rd place spot, still staying in the top 3. And we're going to wait to see if any of these drivers are going to be able to find that time. There it is, Simply Steve, the number 1 machine, as he comes across the line, able to inch it out by a mere 100th of a second over Squilliam. That is impressive. But as we approach 7 minutes left to go here in qualifying, there is still plenty of time left for drivers like Squilliam and for others to be able to make their way. Oh boy. And Simply Steve finding himself in a situation that you really don't want to be in especially in qualifying. But unfortunately, in open qualifying, these are the type of situations you'll find yourself in. And unfortunately, it will come at the cost of having to slow down that number 1 just marginally here. And it looks like the car is going to move over for Steve and let him on by here on the straightaway. Not sure exactly who that is there. Well, we could go through clicking through a bunch of different cars, but Squilliam comes across the line, and he manages to take it away once again for the lead. And after we failed to see Black Bob come across the line with over 0.2 of a second for the lead for a moment before Squilliam came across the line just moments ago to retake that lead by a mere 100th of a second yet again. So it is getting close here for the top 5, and realistically the rest of the field slowly starting to close their pace in here a little bit. Oh, Prince Adam, big trouble here. Able to get it recovered here relatively quickly. So Squilliam, Black Bob, Simply Steve, Bozak, Eat My Dust all sit in your top 5 at the moment, and Squilliam wasn't quite satisfied with being so close in pace to second place driver Black Bob that he decided to shave off an entire 0.5 off of his time here. Incredible work by the number 6 driver of Squilliam. And we're going to see if anyone else is going to find similar pace here with less than 4 minutes left to go here in qualifying. And again, just to let's run through our top 10 here in points before we get into the action here today. So sitting at the very tippy top at the moment, holding on to the championship lead, second race into our sprint series, Nick Beaver, 304 points. Followed by Squilliam in that second place spot with 297 points. Marcelo Olindo in third place, 245 points. Lucas Wallace with 239 points. Alex Jensen in fifth place, 232 points. Martin Wallace in sixth with 212 points. Nick Trollman in seventh, 157 points. John Downey in eighth, 156 points. Nick Trollman, John Downey only separated by 1 point. Adam Henwood, 152 points, only separated by 4 points to John Downey, and it only gets closer from here, folks. I mean, there are points battles that are only separated by 1, 2, 3, 4 points. It is all over the place already going into tonight's race here at Virginia, but I have a feeling, folks, that this race might just kind of spice things up here a little bit and shake things up for drivers in the point standings. Not necessarily in a negative way, but it will be a challenging second race of the season nonetheless, and it will definitely challenge those drivers that are looking to move themselves up the championship standings early on. 2 minutes left to go here in qualifying. Squilliam still your pole sitter with a 142.081, followed by Simply Steve, who manages to outpace Black Bob by a mere 1/10 of a second. 142.475 for the number 1 machine. Black Bob still with a 142.511 in that third place spot, still looking to hold on to that second row position along with Bozak. We're watching along with Nicolator here at the moment. So the final minutes of qualifying is upon us. The white flag will be waved by the flagman, I would have to imagine. And this will be the last chance for drivers to come across the line with as good of a time as they possibly can. Urko comes across the line with a better time this time around, as well as Nicolator, but not quite enough to get an improvement up the starting order. Bozak going to be looking for an improvement here outside the top 3 at the moment. 2/10 separating himself from Black Bob. And it will not be enough this time by as about 100th of a second slower this time around, and that is not much. There it is, the checkered flag being waved here. Drivers now getting escorted back down to the starting grid as we get ourselves ready to go for round number 2 of the J2Y Sprint Series. Up at the front row, we have Squilliam and Simply Steve, Black Bob and Bozak rounding out our second row. AJ, Eat My Dust in our third row. Nicolator, Urko in our fourth row. John Downey, Biker Pilot in our fifth row. Garlic Dog and DC rounding up our sixth row. Moving on down the lineup, Lamp, Prince Adam in the seventh row. Book, Nick Beaver in our eighth row. Joe Albanese and I Am VCOG in our ninth row. Followed by McMurk and Rome in our 10th row. And today's race, folks, is brought to you by the one and only Rising Peaks Coffee. And folks, did you know, using the Rising Peaks website, you can get fresh beans or grind right to your doorstep, and you can visit them right at risingpeakscoffee.com, and you can use the code J2I to get 15% off of your order. So go ahead and do that right after we see the green flag drop here for the first time here at Virginia International Raceway, or rather, we will see the safety car make its way for the first time and get our drivers warmed up and ready to go. So while we have that time, folks, why don't you take some time, take a quick second, risingpeakscoffee.com. Check out what they got, and if you see something you like, tell you what, use the code J2Y at checkout, 15% off your order. I'd say that's a great deal. You get some coffee and you get some racing. Doesn't get much better than that. And I got to tell you, I love coffee. I know everyone else, mostly everybody loves coffee, and Rising Peaks definitely has some great offerings for you. And I can tell you right now, with it being 10 o'clock at night here for us watching the broadcast as well as for these drivers, I can almost say for certain, you know, coffee wouldn't be too bad right now. I know I could probably go for some. And especially with how long this track is here at Virginia, you definitely get a long parade around here with the safety car. So drivers are just going to be casually awaiting to get themselves ready to go. And clicked off here for the first time, 20 minutes that we will see here for the opening sprint race, followed by a 40-minute feature. There will be no pit stops for the 20-minute sprint, so no one is expected to come down into the pit road. Everyone should be able to stay out the entirety of this race. And with that being said, if we do see anyone come down into pit road, it is probably not going to be for any good reasons. And a big shout out to Captain CK out in the chat. Unfortunately, not able to race tonight, but is here in spirit and as well in the chat, giving support to Beaver, his fellow teammate, as they come down the long straightaway. And folks, I know I already mentioned this, but I am actually genuinely glad that these drivers don't have to go through the infield portion of this track. I know I keep saying the infield portion as if it's some kind of mythical part of the track or something, but those cones that you see blocking off the track there coming down the straightaway, it goes in, if you're not familiar with this track, it goes into a very just dystopian type layout that just makes your head crawl, or makes your skin crawl just looking at it. Anyway, safety car makes its way down into pit road. And we await for the green flag to drop here for the very first time, and away we go here at Virginia International Raceway. Squilliam off to a fantastic start as simply Steve Black Bob Bozak take it all side by side, heading off into turn number 1. Let's see how the rest of the field is going to handle this one. A little wide there for a moment from DC, it looked like. Or I believe Biker Pilot. Manages to keep it clean for the time being. A little bit of side-by-side action happening in the top 10. Between Bozak, Eat My Dust as they make their way through the S's here. No choice but to go single file through here. There's no other option. Unless you just have guts of steel. Everyone after the S's opting to go into this single file groove. Looking to just stay within. Oh boy. Book going a little too wide there, as well as McMurk, who finds himself off in the grass here. Good recovery. And luckily for Virginia, there really isn't a whole lot of places that you can... I mean, there are spots that you can ruin your car, but you have a lot more places that you can just drive through the grass, and it's not looking good here as we get a pileup of drivers, and it only continues to get worse. DC, Joe Albanese, John Downey, Bozak, all involved. And it just keeps getting worse for these drivers as they try to get themselves back onto the racing surface. Let's take things back here for just a second. See how this one unfolded here. And gets shunted right into the wall, right as I'm talking about how it's not as easy to get your car ruined here. Oh my, what comedic timing on my part, actually. That is just, was not intentional. For those of you at home watching, wondering to yourself, how did that just happen? Wow. We can go back and look at that one more time here in just a moment, but I want to keep up with some of the action that's happening live. Rome, IMV, Cog. Rome here looking... I don't know if it's just me or if... Looks like he's kind of like twitching almost. Let's ride on board here for a moment. So it might have been just my eyes. But it also could have been he was fighting the rear end there for a moment, trying to get it corrected. But yeah, it looks a little sketchy there for a moment here for VCOG. Here in the 999 machine, manages to keep it moving. And Squilliam, as he comes across the line, manages to set the fastest lap of the race so far, a 142.31. As he manages to now increase his gap to simply Steve to nearly 3 seconds. And kind of as expected here, a lot of this field is finding themselves with quite a bit of room right out of the gate. We're only 3 laps into this race, but only now we're seeing as VCOG finds himself off into the grass. Bozak going to make the move up into 13th. And as I was saying, we're finding a lot of these drivers having quite a bit of room to work with now just because of the sheer difficulty of this track. It is a very technical, very tricky track. And like I was talking about earlier in the race, if you're a driver like myself and you don't exactly put a whole lot of time into sim racing or racing in general, and you come into a league and you have this track on the schedule, oh boy, Bozak getting right up to the tail, and Joe Albany's doing the same thing. A 2-for-1 job as VCOG gets spun around, and here comes McMurk. I believe that was McMurk. Who was that? That's not McMurk. That's John Downey. Oh no, John Downey now finding himself able to get around some drivers here as he was unfortunately put down a lap here after getting involved in that incident. Oh no. Speaking of incidents, let's take a look what happened here to the 999 of VCOG. Oh, gets that tap to the rear end. What's happened after this? He was missing his entire front end here. Hold on. Let's speed things up here just to... Oh, what in the world? Hold the phone. Hold the phone. Was he not paying attention to... He must have been looking at a different monitor or looking away. Because he clearly turned away at the last second trying to steer away from that wall. And to me, for a second, it looked like he was just genuinely upset and was just going to bomb it into the wall. Which, I mean, reasonable. Totally understandable. But no, that looks like he was just... He thought he was going straight down the track, looked away for a second. Oh, wow. Wow. Tough break for Bozak. I mean, wow. Or for VCOG, excuse me. As my timing and scoring is just lighting up with drivers going off track. I can't even keep up with it, folks. It's just... There's battles that are developing, and then next thing you know, they're going off track because they're all trying to push their limits here. And you know what? Just to put things into perspective here, as Rome, the 76 machine, finds himself sliding off into the grass, let's put it into perspective here. Let's go right on board here with Garlic Dog. All right, and we'll just show you. We'll pull up the telemetry here on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. You can see just how fast we're going, what gear we're in, and just if you've never been to Virginia before, if you've never seen a race here, just let this soak in for a minute. And there it is, folks. Just up ahead, we see Lamp unfortunately find the grass off in T1, and I just can't stress to you folks how easy it is to do something like that here. I mean, this track really is very technical. You know, there's the I think the one thing that as a somewhat inexperienced driver, I'm not that experienced when it comes to racing. There are drivers who are far better than me. But what I think makes this track difficult for drivers like myself is the lack of visual markers for yourself around the track for braking points and things like that. I mean, yes, you do have the pylons and everything like that to kind of help you, but those markers are usually pretty small, and especially in the racing sim, depending on what kind of setup you have, this is where you're getting down to really kind of nitty-gritty details. Those things can kind of not really be useful to you in some ways. Again, this is coming from someone who's not all that experienced with, you know, he's not the most experienced driver out there on the track, as we see Lamp. Oh, boy. But again, I mean, just all the grass around the track, I mean, there's a whole bunch of hills and bumps and divots and all kinds of things that you can't really see behind the wheel when you're in these cars, and it's a very tricky track. There goes Lamp off turn 1. So like I mentioned, it's not easy to find where you want to be on the track. I mean, sure, it's easy to say as a spectator, you know, just stay on the pavement. Yeah, of course. Obviously, I'm just kind of making up an argument here, but point being, I just can't stress it enough how difficult this race actually is right now, and the reasoning for all of this calamity that we're seeing throughout this race. But here is a battle that is gonna come down to the wire. Eat My Dust and AJ. Less than 9 minutes left to go. AJ to the inside. Or Eat My Dust to the inside, rather, and he makes it stick. AJ getting right up to the tail of the 24 machine as they make their way through the snaking downhill few last turns. Across the checkered line, AJ right up onto the tail, goes to the outside here through turn 1. Eat My Dust gonna have the advantage here. AJ gonna have the momentum to stay right on the tail of the 24 machine, setting up for turn 2. And through here, you're pretty much just gonna put yourself in a position to stay in the draft or near the driver ahead of you. Not really any spot that you can make a pass happen there. So one thing we can kind of talk about here is, well, really the consistency of some of the drivers around here today. And we can take a look at Eat My Dust and AJ here, who have been battling for this 4th place position for some time now. And you can see on the bottom of your screens the difference in lap times for the drivers in the past 5 laps. And you can see AJ not quite having the advantage on lap 4, but the last 4 laps, he has been on fire and slowly reeling in. And look at lap number 5 as well, managing to close in over 2.5 seconds. Obviously, Eat My Dust probably had something happen that allowed AJ to close that much time. That's not going to happen just out of taking a better line. That is impressive if you're able to do something like that, or you're just doing something wrong. But either way, you can see how close it's been and how far it's been just one lap to the other. It is all over the board, and that's just one example. We can go back here between Bozak and Joe Albanese, or excuse me, Garlic Dog and Bozak. I thought it was the other way around, but Garlic Dog and Bozak, and we can see Garlic Dog has, the last 5 laps, he's been able to improve over Bozak rather significantly. But for Bozak, starting to close that time in quite significantly here. And I just realized I was reading those wrong the entire time. That is my fault. So basically take everything I said and just reverse it, and then it's kind of true. Mostly. Anywho, anyhow. So with the 20-minute sprint that we have here, going into the feature event, the 40-minute feature, that is where really kind of things start to get interesting for these drivers and kind of how they want to attack it, because they've all had a chance to experience what the race is going to feel like and what kind of issues they have had here throughout the sprint race. They're going to have to kind of take a survey of what they've done here in the sprint and try and fix any issues that they had here going into the feature event, and hope that they can make it stick, make it work, and be able to find some improvement going into the feature event. But so far, realistically speaking, a lot of these drivers have done quite well. Nick Beaver, currently the hard charger of the race, right on the tail of Nicolator, goes to the outside down the long straightaway, the battle for 6th place. Beaver going to make that pass happen, as Nicolator not going to put up too much of a fight here. And the love seat number 10 machine definitely has seen some better days, much like the love seat itself. But we won't go into details about that, as Nick Beaver, again, the hard charger, up 10 spots from where he started here tonight, and looking to climb his way up into the top 5 if at all possible. But with 2.5 minutes left to go, I don't think that's going to be in the realm of possibility at the moment, at least. Big lockup here, though, from the number 10, and, you know, that is, gosh, I really, we can take a look at, so here, riding from Bozak's perspective, heading into turn 1, take a look at this. That is all the visual markers that you have heading up into this turn. That's it. Now, to some people, that's probably enough. But when you are approaching that turn, you really don't have much telling you what's on the other side of it. And how you are, basically, you're never too sure on where you're going to end up once you come out of the other side of the turn. It's, you know, you're kind of really trusting yourself to hit that mark consistently. So with less than a minute left to go here before the flag is waved here for the sprint race, Eat My Dust and AJ going to be amongst the only drivers to have a relatively close battle here. AJ about a half a second behind Eat My Dust for the 4th place position down the long straight. As the checkered flag is being waved, Squilliam going to come across the line for the win here in the sprint. AJ, Eat My Dust managing their way through the last few windy turns. Whoa, AJ almost making the one critical error that you don't want to make here through the last couple turns. And realistically speaking, folks, the last 2-3 turns, it's all about just making it out. Just get out of there. You don't even got to think about it. Just get out of there. It is one of those turns that if you try and tell yourself, oh, I'm going to, send it and try and save a 100th of a second, it's just don't do it. Trust me. The remainder of the field now going to make their way across the checkered line. A relatively quiet finish here for drivers, as 99% of the field having at least a second of a gap between themselves and the next driver or more. So hopefully, again, as we were talking a little bit about how drivers can hopefully kind of take some of this experience from the sprint race and move it into the future. Hopefully we'll see some drivers do that. But let's go ahead and get into some post-race interviews for the sprint race. And let's start off with our second place driver, Mr. Simply Steve, joining us up here in the booth, coming away with that second place finish. Sorry, Steve, to interrupt you, but congratulations on that second place finish. It was, honestly, Virginia, one of those tracks that when I see it on the schedule, I pretty much expect it to be it's tough in every sense of the word, but yourself, Squilliam, Black Bob, I mean, really the top 5, you guys all seem to be relatively comfortable. A couple other drivers in there as well that were doing phenomenally well. But Steve, kind of talk to me a little bit about what you think is the key to doing well here at Virginia, a very notoriously difficult track here on the iRacing service.
Yeah, I mean, I showed up today and did my first laps today, so I'm glad to have done as well as I did. I think the key to Virginia is just backing up the corner way more than you think, especially in this setup, which is a low downforce setup. You can't take nearly as much speed as you want in a lot of the corners, so you really have to resist the urge to overcook and take too much speed into any of the corners. And when you do that, you end up getting more speed, and there's kind of a push and pull on that. So
yeah, 100%. It's definitely one of those tracks that I think kind of test a lot of drivers in a sense of being able to, I've said it a lot throughout the broadcast today, but being able to stay consistent and hit your marks throughout the race here. But Steve, kind of taking away this sprint and heading into the 40-minute feature, what's kind of your outlook here? I know it's a top 8 inverted, so you start in 7th. What's kind of going to be your game plan here for the opening laps here?
I mean, stay alive. I mean, those first opening laps are kind of crazy, especially cold tires and everything. Yeah, I mean, I think there's no real strategy. Like you said, the consistency here is pretty big. So as long as you don't overcook it, you keep it on track and keep it moving. There's a lot of a lot of moves to be made. So I think it's just keeping it consistent. That's the name of my game. So.
Well, Steven, one last question before you go. I know it's already kind of close in points battles between a lot of drivers. What's kind of your hope this season as far as points go, as far as team championship, drivers championships? Do you have any goals there?
Yeah, I mean, would be obviously winning is great when you can, but life is busy. So I think for me, if we, me and Eat My Dust could clinch the team championship, I'd be really happy with that. If I can get top 3 in the sprint, like in the drivers, that would be pretty great. But I put in most of my time to the endurance series when I have it. So.
Well, Steve, it's always a pleasure to have you up here in the booth and to see you out there on track. And I want to congratulate you one more time on your podium finish here today. It's always great to see you up here and pulling off some great races. But Steve, before I let you go, anyone you want to give a shout out to and thank before you head back out onto the track?
Yeah, shout out to my teammate. Shout out to anyone that I know that's watching. Didn't really promote this one, so if anyone's having to tune in, friends, family, but yeah.
All right, Steve, I'll let you get back to it. Good luck to you out there, and I hope to get to talk to you again before the night's over.
Thanks.
All right, you have a good one.
You too.
Alrighty, folks, that was simply Steve coming out of the booth with that second place finish. And last and certainly not going to be least here, we are going to have Sir Squilliam joining us up here with the win for the sprint. Squilliam, as always, it's a pleasure to have you up here in the booth, and it seems to be already being a little bit of a regular thing to have you up here. Squilliam, it seemed like you're the guy to beat out here tonight. Having just an incredible amount of pace and not really having any mistakes that I could see out there. What's kind of been the big thing for you in staying consistent out here? Is it tire management, fuel management? Is it just all of the above? What's kind of your what's kind of helping you stay consistent out here?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just I just decided to drive comfortable once I kind of I felt really confident going into the race that I'd have a decent bit of pace over other people, and when I started to realize that, I just kind of backed off of pushing. There's no need to throw away a win, so just kind of lengthened some braking zones, didn't push the car as hard in some of the corners that I normally would to gain time, and just got really comfortable with it. So,
well, I would say comfortable is definitely an understatement. You were looking quite good out there, and coming into the feature event, 40 minutes, starting in the 8th place spot, you definitely have a little bit of traffic to work your way through. Especially the opening lap's going to be a little bit chaotic. What's kind of going to be your game plan? Just kind of keep doing what you've been doing, or are you going to be a little bit more aggressive, try and make some overtakes happen here in the opening laps? What's the game plan?
You never know what's going to happen. Obviously, like Red Bull Ring, there's a crazy opening 2 laps, and I was able to take advantage of a lot of stuff, but sometimes it's not as easy. This track's a little not as wide as Red Bull Ring, but I think it's I feel very confident in my pace. I think I have the ability to get through the field and get away from them, so I'm just going to try to be patient with it. There's no use in rushing things or going for a really late dive that puts me out of the race. I'm confident in my ability to pass everybody and to try to get the win here.
Well, Squilliam, I would say you are definitely on track to do that, and also looking to be on track to come away with potentially the lead in the championship standings as well. You and Nick Beaver only separated by a mere, what was it? It was 6-7 points. So yeah, I think you are definitely on a good streak here tonight. But Squilliam, before I let you go here and get back onto the track and ready to go here before the feature start, anyone you want to give a shout out to and thank before you head out?
Well, I'll always shout out to my Chum Bucket Discord boys. I'm sure they're watching. They always do. And, shout out as always to my teammate Adam. Adam, he's putting in a lot of work. And, he unfortunately had a little incident there, I think, in race 1. But I think he'll bounce back in this race, so good luck to him.
Well, Squilliam, as always, it's great to have you up here in the booth to get to chat with you. Good luck to you out there. Hopefully we get to talk to you again before the night's over. And hopefully we get to see that number 6 machine back on the podium again tonight.
Of course. Thanks, man.
Have a good one. Alrighty, folks, Squilliam out of the booth, coming away with that big old W for the sprint here tonight. And just a few minutes before we get into our main event. So while that happens, we are going to take a short intermission up here in the booth. And while that happens, folks, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere because we are going to be right back with the action right here at J2I for round number 2 of the sprint series, brought to you by Rising Peaks Coffee. Don't go anywhere, folks, because we'll be back for more right here on Team Goon Squad. Alrighty, folks. Welcome back to the action as we get ready to get through our feature lineup here for race number 2 of the J2Y Sprint Series. As the checkered flag is waved for our short intermission, as drivers get a little bit of a short practice in before we get ourselves geared up for the 40-minute feature event. And starting off in the front row, we have Nicolator and Urko, followed by Nick Beaver and AJ in the second row. Eat My Dust and Black Bob taking up the third row. Simply Steve and Squilliam in our fourth row. Biker Pilot Bozak in the fifth row. Garlic Dog and Joe Albanese in our sixth row. Prince Adam DC in the 7th row, Rome and Book in the 8th row, John Downey and McMurk in the 9th row, followed by Lamp and I Am BCOG in our 8th row. 10th row, excuse me, I don't know where I got 8th row from. So drivers now just patiently going to await to get things started here today. Now, just to run through a little bit of points for today's race. Now, this is something that we didn't do for last season, and it's something that I'm going to try and keep up with throughout this season. And folks, if you're watching at home, if I'm not doing it, keep me in check, all right? So, let's run through a little bit of the points from drivers, or what points drivers will get for the sprint race. Now, Squilliam will come away with 14 points for the win of the sprint race. Second place will come away with 11 points. Third place is 9 points. Fourth place is 7. Fifth place is 6. Sixth place is 5 points. 4, 3, and then the rest of the field gets 2 points from there on. And if you get pole position, you also get an additional point. If you get the fastest lap, you also get an additional point. So for Squilliam, as far as he's concerned, Now, I'm not very good at math, but I would think that right at the moment, Squilliam is technically your unofficial points leader in the championship. Now, I'm sure that's going to put a smile on Squilliam's face, but will he be able to keep that up here in the feature with Nick Beaver in that 4th place position? If you'll remember, Beaver was able to hold on throughout the race and be the hard charger, managing to get all the way up here into that 6th place spot to be able to start up in that 2nd row. Drivers getting those tires warmed up here down that long back straightaway as we gear up for what will be a very interesting start here to our feature race. Here we go. Coming out of the final turn, safety car makes its way down into the pits. Nicolator, Urko await the green flag to drop. And here we go. Nicolator, a big jump over the rest of the field, heading off into turn 1. Nick Beaver, Urko side by side. Beaver going to stay to that inside. Heading into turn 1, Urko going to be left out to dry just a little bit, and there goes Simply Steve getting punted sideways, or no, that's not Simply Steve, that's Squilliam. Losing that front end of the number 6 machine. Trouble already right out of the gate, turn number 1, Squilliam, after his interview saying he was going to play it safe, and that has to be netcode. That has to be netcode. Take a look at this. I mean, oh gosh, that has to be. It is so close, it hurts. Wow. I am at a loss for words right now, and I'm almost certain that Squilliam is also feeling just absolutely gut-wrenched right now. That is, wow. Meanwhile, the action continues to develop on track as drivers continue to fight for position here in the opening lap. Oh, a little sideways there for DC, goes off into the grass. Gonna have to make the long recovery back onto the track here. Hopefully doesn't find himself alongside any other drivers. Luckily doesn't find himself with anyone else around him. Urko, eat my dust, side by side into turn 1. Urko with the inside line advantage. A little bit of a lockup here from multiple drivers as Nicolator falls down the grid and Nick Beaver takes the lead. Here in the feature event, Beaver, the number 10 driver. A slow and steady start to the sprint race here for Nick Beaver results in a fiery start here in the feature. 6 cars now in a line here for the battle for second place, or for third place, I should say. Urko at the helm of the Spear. AJ just behind him, Black Bob following, Simply Steve, Bozak, and Nicolator all trailing along with one another at this moment. We'll ride on the nose of Nicolator as he goes wide, having to avoid. Oh no! Prince Adam, Squilliam's teammate, getting contact. Backmarker Motorsport not having a great start to the feature event here, as Squilliam now makes his way back onto the track. Nicolator, a little bit of trouble here in the final turn. What resulted in a very strong start for these drivers is now starting to really kind of compound some errors, as, I mean, everyone's fighting for position, and just, we heard it from Squilliam, this track is really not meant for, well, he didn't say that verbatim, but it's really not that easy to get into battles with one another and to make passing happen. This track is not very wide. There's not many places on this track that you can really kind of stick your nose in. Oh, Simply Steve. And there are just a lot of places around this track where one small error. Oh man, Nicolator through the S's there, not quite able to keep it on track, but still stays on the tail of IMV Cog. Meanwhile, back up ahead, Simply Steve on the tail of Black Bob as he tries and reels in the 666 machine. Bozak also looking just a little further back as Squilliam rejoining the track a little bit late here, but drivers do still have to make a pit stop. But unfortunately for Squilliam, oh man, I really don't think it's gonna work out for Squilliam here. I think this has really just resulted in a very bum race here for the number 6 driver, and he was very optimistic going into the feature. You know, being I even asked him, was he planning on being a little more aggressive or being just kind of doing the same? And he said it. He said he was going to just do more of the same, just stay cautious. And unfortunately, that caution, man. And there was nothing he really could have done in that situation there in turn 1. I mean, it really just came down to, I really think it was still netcode. Let's take a look at this one more time. And let's come up from above here and see if we can get a bird's eye view of this. I mean, unless he tapped the brakes, which I almost am inclined to believe he did. Ah, man, that is so tough. And from there, it only gets worse. I mean, I could roll the tape further, but we all know what's happened at this point. And for Squilliam, I mean, luckily, the Backmarker Motorsport team, they did a bang-up job of getting that 6 machine back out there onto the track. So unfortunately for Squilliam, he is going to have a long race ahead of him now, but luckily he's not completely out of it. Tuning back in here to the race leader, Nick Beaver, who is starting to see Eat My Dust. Number 24 start to reel him in here. on through the S's. Eat My Dust able to wind that gap down to about 0.2 of a second, now 0.3. Let's take a look at the different sector times between these two drivers just to get a good idea just how fast or just how slow each one currently is. And you can see it there, Sector 4, Eat My Dust setting the fastest sector of the race with a 23.086 here in Sector 4. So impressive work there by Eat My Dust, but unfortunately, next sector quite a bit slower, losing 0.3, almost a little, about 0.3 of a second. We'll just call it that. There in Sector 5 and Sector 6. Just a little bit more time there. And we will reset the clock here once again here between these two drivers as Eat My Dust falls to about a second behind Nick Beaver here at the moment. We'll check back in with those times here over the course of the race, but pit stops aren't expected to happen for quite some time yet, and I suspect that once we get a little bit closer to that point, those sector times will be a little bit more apparent. So while drivers, they won't need to come down into pit road to get tires. They will need to come in to get fuel. They are limited to 48% of their full fuel limit. Now, I don't have an exact liters or gallons for you folks at home to tell you exactly how much fuel they're putting in these cars. I'm sure that's probably something we could obtain in the future. But needless to say, they still have about halfway to go before they need to come down into pit road. And right now are mainly just focused on clicking off laps at this time and just kind of putting their heads down, getting this first stint over with. And whatever battles that are kind of presented ahead of them, I mean, they are obviously going to attempt to close the gap as much as they can, but we're already well into the stint here. You definitely don't want to make any crucial errors here, especially as the car starts to get lighter and lighter. It'll get a little bit more squirrely, a little bit more difficult to control, especially in some of these turns, especially the downhill portions of this track. A little bit further up ahead, the top five starting to close things in here a little bit. Oh, lap traffic going off there. Rome finding himself off into the grass out of the hairpin, luckily able to get it back onto the track without any harm or foul. Black Bob, Eat My Dust, the battle for second place coming down to under 1/10 of a second. Eat My Dust just trying to stay right in the mirrors of that 666 machine, letting him know he is there and ready. Heading into turn one, this is where you can either make it or break it. Eat My Dust to the inside, makes the great move. The pass to the inside for second place. Black Bob now going to be challenged by Bozak as Eat My Dust tries to get himself a little bit of distance now between himself and these drivers. 666 machine definitely not going to let that one slide. But at the moment, as far as pace is concerned, Eat My Dust is going to be able to build up distance slowly. But that consistency is going to have to remain true in order for that to happen here. Albany's getting right up to the tail of Garlic Dog there for just a moment, as we look to try and tune in with some of the other drivers around the field here, some of the other battles that have been developing around the track, one of which between Urko and AJ. We're watching here right now. You can see on the right-hand side of your screens as well the track map and where drivers currently are. And this is a great representation of just how far this field has spread out just 15 minutes into this race here. AJ, Urko, only 0.3 of a second separating these two drivers. And as we are 15 minutes into this race, I want to take this moment to give a shout out to our sponsor, Rising Peaks Coffee. Folks, if you didn't know this already, you can head on over to risingpeakscoffee.com. Check out all of the coffee options that they have. And at your checkout, you can enter the code J2I to get 15% off of your order. And folks, I got to tell you, for just coming here, watching a broadcast, supporting your favorite driver, your favorite league, and getting 15% off of your coffee order with Rising Peaks Coffee, I think that is a bang-up deal indeed. So as always, folks, big shout-out, big thank you to our series sponsor, Rising Peaks Coffee. And show your love, show your support. Head on over to Rising Peaks Coffee. Use the code J2I for 15% off of your order and get yourself some of that coffee goodness delivered right to your front door. Urko, AJ, they're going to start to build up a battle here between themselves. Meanwhile, a little bit further up ahead, Eat My Dust and Black Bob also starting to get a little bit of a battle mixed up here. As we see the first, I believe, official pit stop entry of the race with Simply Steve coming down into the pits, followed by Urko and DC, both teammates of Bong Life Motorsport, making their way down into pit road. The action continues to develop around the track here. We were just watching along with VCOG, tracking down Prince Adam, getting a lockup there into turn 1. Some of these battles start to dissipate just a little bit. We can talk a little bit about the weather conditions here at Virginia and see just what it's like out there on the track. And right now, if you're a spectator, it is rather comfortable t-shirt weather. 78 degrees Fahrenheit is the ambient temperature, with 93 degrees being the track temperature at the moment. So rather ideal for racing, and it is definitely being utilized by drivers trying to push their limits here. As we're watching the battle for third place develop even further, Black Bob, Bozak reeling in Eat My Dust. 24 driver looking to fend off here the 666 machine as we look out the rear view of the 24. Just getting a good picture of that 666 trying to reel in Eat My Dust as they come out of the hairpin onto the long back straightaway. So we are now into the final half of our feature event here tonight. Joe Albanese, Nicolata are also going to get themselves into a battle for the 8th place position. Only 0.3 of a second separating these two drivers. Black Bob going to take the opportunity to come down into pit road. See a little bit of brake dust coming up there as well as he comes across the commitment line. A little bit of a lockup we see from the front of Urco. Nothing else comes of it though. Joe Albanese makes his way down into pit road now as well. Only a few drivers remaining, about 8 drivers at the moment that are left to come down into pit road. Right as we tune to the 24 driver, Eat My Dust makes his way down into pit road. So now the question remains, what's going to be the strategy here for Nick Beaver? And also, what's potentially going to be the strategy here for Squilliam, who came in on lap 7 to get all of that damage worked out? Now, I would have to imagine he also got a good chunk of fuel while he was in there. How much longer he'll be able to stay out, I'm not too certain, but at the very least, he could theoretically, I don't know, he might even stay one lap down. That's a tough call right there. I'm not too certain on Swilliam's position right now, but I got to commend him for sticking with it and staying in the race, and not calling it quits after the turn 1 incident. I mean, we've seen it plenty of times here in Team Goon Squad throughout our broadcast history where drivers get involved in a wreck, turn 1, lap 1, and it's just that's it for them. That's the end of their race. that's all they can tolerate, and they just take the car back to the trailer. But there are also a fair few drivers that do the opposite, that they take their car back down to pit road. They wait out the time that they need to get the car back out onto the track, and they keep racing. Obviously, you know, the mentality for both are, you know, both valid. Both reasonings are going to be valid no matter how you look at it, but it's just the fact that Squilliam is out here still racing, even despite having being dropped down the field quite a bit. It just goes to show that he's not in it for the points. He's not in it for the bragging rights or anything like that. Not that any of these drivers are to begin with, but it's a great show of character and great sportsmanship on behalf of Squilliam's part. Black Bob, man. You know, in every situation that we've seen these drivers in, going off track and finding themselves in just sticky spots, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this broadcast can attest to it as well, I've found myself in that same situation almost more than once. So Nick Beaver making his way in through pit road now. Bozak going to be the last driver who has yet to make their way in through pit road to grab their final set of fuel and get themselves ready for this last bit of racing. John Downey getting right up to the tail of Biker Pilot. About 4/10 separating these two drivers here at the moment. John Downey getting a good run here down the front straight into turn one. He's going to look to the inside here. Will he make it work through the braking zone? Great execution by the 99 machine, and up into 9th place he goes. As Biker Pilot going to drop back into 10th place and now going to be in the hunt to recover that lost position, as we see VCOG making a safe transition back onto the track after finding himself off in the grass there for a moment. So with about 10 minutes left to go, the entirety of our field now having made their way down through pit road. It all comes down to these last 11 minutes. Being able to just stay consistent here. Tires are going to be getting a little bit older now at this point, but they should still have plenty of life left in them to get to the end. Biker Pilot finding himself in a big pickle here, the 42 machine, right at the entry of the S's. Trying to find the safest spot to re-enter the track. Luckily, is able to do so. In big trouble here for Nick Beaver as he's lost the lead. Oh no. Rome having an incident of his own right at the S's. Nick Beaver left with no options to get around him. Makes full contact, and there you see that front end is critically damaged. And Nick Beaver forced with no other choice but to come down into pit road. What a crushing way to have your race lead ended. Wow. So for Nick Beaver, he is going to find himself with quite a bit of time before he can get back out onto the track. And actually, not much time, actually. He's right back out there. I am still just at a loss of words here for what Nick Beaver just had to go through. And for Rome, the 76 driver who he made contact with, I mean, it wasn't his fault. You know, he made a mistake. He went into the wall and ended up back onto the track. And there's no way that you can control that when you get into a collision like that. But, yeah, just with less than 10 minutes left to go in a race, that is surely gonna damper the emotions a little bit there for the number 10 driver. I'd have to imagine, unfortunately. But for Bozak, the 906, the opportunity has arisen, and Bozak is going to arise to the challenge to stay in the lead here and potentially come away with the win. With 6 minutes left to go here in the feature event, Eat My Dust only a second behind him followed by Black Bob, the next closest driver, and I believe, yeah, Squilliam up here with the race leaders. So Squilliam not too far from being able to, well, at the very least, be close to be on the lead lap. I don't know if he'll be able to. He's got to get around these two guys if he wants to, but with 4 minutes left to go, some battles starting to close in on each other. And the one for the lead is definitely the one to watch at the moment. About 0.5 of a second separating these two drivers at the moment, and as we come across the line here, I believe this will be roughly 2, maybe 3 laps left to go. I'm going to go with 2 laps. So with that in mind, there's not going to be much opportunities left for these drivers to try and close the gap, if at all. And when I say close the gap, especially here at Virginia, there's really not much that you can do to make that happen. You're pretty much going to be dependent on the driver ahead of you making some kind of mistake. Bozak, Eat My Dust. Both of these drivers are just looking phenomenal here at this moment. They are looking exquisite on the track right now. My Dust able to close the gap to Bozak to now 0.2 of a second as they come through the final few turns. And I do believe that this will be the last lap here for these drivers. Eat My Dust looks to the inside through turn 1. Will he be able to make it work? He does. Bozak definitely in danger of going a little too wide. They are able to stay right next to Eat My Dust. Going to fall back to about 0.4 of a second. As they come into the S's, able to close it just a little bit, trying to stay on the tail of the 24 machine. Bozak doing everything he can to keep the momentum up here. The last lap for these drivers to make something happen. Pushing here into the hairpin. Great momentum. Great exit. Staying right in the draft down the long straight. Taking a little peek to the outside there. Definitely don't want to be there on the entry into this turn. Lock up there from Eat My Dust. Any mistake here is going to cost him. And there it is, a little too wide from Bozak. Eat My Dust now going to come across the line, and he will take home the win here at Virginia International Raceway for round number 2 of the J2Y Sprint Series. Bozak in that second place spot. Bob Wallace in that third place spot, followed by Simply Steve in DC in fourth place. Biker Pilot and AJ, the last 2 remaining drivers with a close battle on the track. AJ with the last. I was going to say with the last opportunity to make a pass there, but realistically here, there's still a chance for something to happen. Biker Pilot has to stay consistent. Both of these drivers do. No mistakes can be made. Great job by both drivers. The downhill portion always posing us some sneaky challenges. And both executing it flawlessly. Less than 1/10 of a second, but AJ's going to go off into the dirt as they take it across the line. Nearly nose to nose. Wow. AJ taking the local route through the grass to get right up alongside Biker Pilot, as Biker Pilot trying to squeeze the space from him. What a finish between these 2 drivers. And from this field, a great, great race at a very, very difficult track. Huge round of applause to all of our drivers, as that is going to round out our feature event here today, and we get ready for post-race interviews. Starting up first is going to be Mr. Bob joining us up here. Sorry, Bob, to interrupt you. Joining us with that third place finish here on the podium. Bob, it was a doozy of a race here tonight, and kind of an unexpected finish that we got to saw here with less than 10 minutes left to go. Beaver finding himself in a huge, huge wreck with Rome there in the S's. Bob, I mean, once that kind of happened, that opened up the door for the top 3, and we also got to see a little bit of a battle there towards the end. I mean, what was kind of running through your head the moment that you realized that Beaver was not the race leader anymore?
So I was kicking myself because I thought I had done pretty well in the pits, but Eat My Dust stuck his nose in there back into turn 1, so I figured we were going to fight again, and I made a mistake going into turn 1, and it just ruined it for me. And knowing that I could have been fighting for a lead, it hurts. It stings a little bit.
Well, Bob, you know, and coming here to Virginia, it's not an easy track, and you know, taking away coming into the race going into that battle and coming away from it kind of thinking to yourself, oh, I could have done this, could have done that better. I would personally say that I think you did phenomenally. And taking away what you did here this week and applying that in 2 weeks' time, going to, where do we go to next? We head to Oregon. I've actually never been there before, so I can't say how easy or difficult it's going to be, but what's kind of your expectations heading there?
I have never been there, so I'm definitely going to have to put in some practice, but if I can get a race like I got with Eat My Dust and Simply Steve's today, you know, I'll be happy. Those guys are stand-up guys, and the racing was super, super clean, so yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I would say it was a great race, and for yourself and for your team, I mean, you know, both of you finishing in the top 10, that's got to be a great feeling, especially with how close the points battle is between a lot of the teams here. What kind of is the goal here for yourself and for Team ZFG?
Bring home some hardware, I think is it. We've dropped short a couple times in the J2I season, so I think this year our goal is solid P3 or above, and you know, we'll be happy with that.
Well, Bob, I think you guys are off to a fantastic start. I mean, coming away both top 10s in a very, very difficult track, I think is a good way to kind of kick things off in the second race of the season. So, Bob, before I let you go, before you get to crack open that cold one sitting in your fridge right now, staring you in the face, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank before you head out?
Absolutely, the entire ZFG team, you know, for backing us, putting us out here, and you for putting this on, and J2I for putting this on as well. You guys put on a good show, and I really appreciate watching it back later.
As always, Bob, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining me up here in the booth. I look forward to seeing you in race in the next few weeks' time, and hopefully get to talk to you again in the future.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you. Alrighty, folks, that was Bob out of the booth, coming away with that third place finish. The 666 machine and Team ZFG coming away with a podium finish here tonight. Last, certainly not going to be least, because we don't have Bozak here tonight. Unfortunately, Eat My Dust going to join us up here in the booth, coming away with that big old W. Dust, welcome. Congratulations. It was a tough race here tonight. And the first question that I have for you here, were you expecting to come away with a win tonight?
Well, short answer, Mason, no, I was not. Had a good few laps there, trading the lead back and forth with Beaver, but then I had a half spin there, lap 6 or 7, I think, and I had kind of resigned to fight for second with Bozak and Bob for the rest of the race. And several laps later, something happened to Beaver, and fighting for Bozak for the win there. So,
and that's
it
always
was a bit of a surprise.
You know, a surprise is always welcome, especially when it's, you know, a lead opportunity and you get to come away with a win. But you know, coming away with this race and kind of taking all the things that happened here tonight, and really kind of your success here tonight, even if Beaver did come away with the win here tonight, you were still looking at a top 3 finish, and I think here at Virginia that is more than okay. I think for me personally, anything under top 15 is perfect for me. So being able to come here and come away with a podium is got to be a good feeling. Now, looking forward to next week. I'm not familiar with this track, but Oregon is the next track that we head to in the Sprint Series. What's kind of your outlook there? Have you ever raced there, or what's kind of your game plan for there?
I mean, honestly, I don't even own that track. So
is it a new track? I feel like it's new.
Yeah, it came out very recently.
That would explain it.
This season than last season, but yeah, I haven't bought it, haven't raced on it. I've watched a couple laps on it. So we'll kind of see how that goes. I might need to show up a little more than 20 minutes before qualifying in 2 weeks.
Oh, well, I'm certainly looking forward to it, because I didn't even realize that was a track option up until about 60 seconds ago. So anyway, Eat My Dust, you did a phenomenal job here tonight, and looking forward into not only next week for the Endurance Series, but in 2 weeks' time, hopefully we get to see you back out here on the podium and coming away with some more points for yourself and for your team. But before I let you go, before you get to celebrate, anyone you want to give a shout out to or thank before you head out?
Thanks to my teammate Steve. Thanks to my new wife, the reason I couldn't have been here 2 weeks ago, for letting me continue to do this. Thanks to DC and Erico for letting us sit in their chat all night. And yeah.
Well, big shout out to all of our significant others who put up with our racing shenanigans. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. Eat My Dust, thank you for joining me up here in the booth, and congratulations once again on your W. And hopefully we get to talk to you again before the season. Well, in a few weeks' time. How about that?
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, Mason. Good talking to you.
You have a good one. Alrighty, folks, that was Eat My Dust coming away with the win here tonight. And that is going to conclude our coverage here of round number 2 of the J2Y Sprint Series right here at Virginia International Raceway. My name is Mason Highenbaugh with Team Goon Squad, bringing you the action here tonight. If you like what you saw, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, catch all the action that we have here on Team Goon Squad throughout the week. And as always, folks, we will see you same time, same place next week as we gear up for round number 2 of the J2I Endurance Series. Folks, thank you all for watching. And as always, if you haven't, before we end things out, if you haven't already, check out our series sponsor, Rising Peaks Coffee, by going to risingpeakscoffee.com and using the code J2I at checkout to get 15% off of your order. Show some love for our folks at J2I and get some delicious coffee in return. Thank you all for watching, folks, and we will see you all in the next one.
Oh, Pearson gets into the 95 of Folks. Here comes the caution.
Flag is dropped here at Daytona and away Joe for the first time. Nicholas Morcel, Sean.
Looks like most get through unscathed. Look at that, there's Reed Gibson. A big move at the inside line of Dom's, possibly a little bit of contact.
Now as we've got 3 wide action going through turns 1 and 2.
And they're underway. Eric Hahn takes a nice jump. Wilson hasn't let him go very far.
Go out here for Circuit Spa Francorchamps. Alex Johnson's off to a brilliant start there.
Just how oddly shaped this one is. We saw in the background Eric Hahn go for a bit of a swing, and he's gone and he's over.
New stuff. Cody Graham's the one-on-one up into second place. Alex Johnson 6/10 the lead at the moment.
Mr. Dicey up front. There's Andrew Kessel, Justin Sang.
They are ready to go. The lights are out and away we go for the very first time here at Okayama International Circuit. Finley Fitzsimmons.